We all know how difficult it feels when after doing something or saying something, the same mind that forced us to do that action, the same mind that pushed us to do that action, turns back at us and say, why did you do that? Why did you say that? You shouldn't have done that. We spend a lot of time regretting about our past actions, the things that we have done or said in the past. It turns out 75% of people spend a significant amount of their lifetime regretting either about past or being fear about the future, right? So if you think that you're the only person who is regretting about the past actions, you are not. We all are. We all are in the same boat, right? So the Buddha realized that regretting over the past actions is one of the biggest issues when it comes to the peace of the human mind. So that is why the Buddha gives a straightforward answer for this question, how to stay away from regrets in life. The Buddha says, first, be mindful about your actions. And by doing something, if the result leads to suffering of yourself or suffering to others, stay away from doing such actions. That is the first thing to do, right? But how to put it into action? How to not to collect the things or to do things that brings regret to our life? So the Buddha gave us an amazing advice to practice this, amazing practice. Buddha describes this to his former son, Rahula. Before becoming the Buddha, he was a prince and he had a son. His name was Rahula. Later he became a monk, right? And he gave this amazing advice to Venerable Rahula. The Buddha asked from Venerable Rahula, Rahula, what do you think? What is the purpose of a mirror? Then Venerable Rahula says, the purpose of a mirror is to see the reflection, check the reflection, sir. Then the Buddha says, in the same way, Rahula, you have to understand that before doing something or before saying something, you have to thoroughly reflect on that action. You have to ask from yourself that this action that I'm wishing to do, will it bring suffering to my life? Will it bring suffering to others' life? Am I doing this action with an unwholesome mind? If the answer is yes, then the Buddha says, by all means, you have to stay away from such actions. Because the things that we do with an unwholesome mind, the Buddha says that the end result is the suffering. So the Buddha explains this in the first verse in the Dhammapada. The Buddha says, if someone did something with an unwholesome mind, suffering follows that person like a cart wheel follows an ox. Right? So what Buddha teaches us is that before doing something or before saying something, just wisely reflect on it. Right? Thoroughly reflect on it. What will be the consequence of this action? Is it going to hurt myself? Is it going to hurt others? Right? And then the Buddha says, when you reflect on your actions, if you found out that the actions that you are wishing to do will bring happiness to yourself, the actions that you are going to do will bring the happiness to other people. And if you are doing this action with an wholesome mind, by all means, do that, because that brings the peace and happiness to your life. So that is where the practice of mindfulness comes into play, right? Because in mindfulness, we don't do things mindfully. What we do is we become mindful about what we do, right? We understand why we are doing what we are doing, right? Most of the time, the reason why we collect regretful actions to our life is because we don't know why we are doing what we are doing, right? So the first step is to understand what is the purpose of this action? What is the intention behind my actions? When you become mindful about the consequence of such actions, then you can make a good choice to stay away from the things that brings the regret to our life, right? So that is the first thing to do. The first thing is to be mindful and to thoroughly reflect on our actions and to stay away from the things that brings the regret to our life. That is the first step. And then the Buddha realized that as an average person, you can't reflect on each and every action that you do, right? That mindfulness is not that that developed enough for each and every person. So as an average person, we all will make mistakes. We will all do wrong things. Then the Buddha gave an amazing solution for this problem, for this regret. The Buddha says, if you have done something that is regretful, do not hide it. That is what Buddha says. The Buddha says, if you have done something, if you are regretting about a past action, if you are regretting about something that you have done in the past or said in the past, first thing you have to do is you should not hide it. Find a person who can understand you. The Buddha says that reveal it to your spiritual teacher, right? Find a person who can understand you, or reveal it to your spiritual companions, right? Find a community of people who can understand you, who does not judge you, who can give a good guidance to you, and reveal it to them, right? Do not hide it. Do not conceal it. Open it up in front of wise people. Now, there are two amazing things that happens when you reveal yourself or when you confess yourself in front of wise people. What are the two things? The first thing is that it frees up your mind, right? It releases your stress and the tension and that negative energy that is building up in your mind, right? And that will lead to not to repeat this same action again and again. The problem with concealing and hiding a past mistake is that the more we hide it, the more there will be a probability for it to repeat. If you reveal it, then it frees up it releases your heart, right? And also it releases that negative energy that is building up within you. That is the first thing that happens to you. The second thing is that you will get a wonderful guidance, good guidance to overcome that action, right? You will get the help from the community around you, right? So the first thing is to not to do something that is regretful. That is the first thing to do. To do that, we need to build up the mindfulness, right? And to reflect on our actions before doing them. And the second thing is that if there are things that we are regretting about the past, we have to reveal it. You have to talk about it and let it out from your heart. So these are the two things that we have to do when it comes to regret. So the Buddha showed us that understanding the mistake as a mistake and accepting it and disciplining yourself to not to repeat it again will help you to free up your mind and bring peace and happiness to all of our minds. So that is why we all need, and it is very important for all of us to practice the mindfulness, practice the reflection on our own actions, and also to be brave enough to confess the mistakes that we have done in the past. So I hope you got some idea about this mindfulness and confession. So hope to see you in another video. See you in the next week. Namo Buddhaya.